Does everybody know what a one-upper is? Some one-uppers? I see some smiles. Y'all know who those kind of people are? Those kind of folks who might say when you walk into the office, oh man, I really had a rough day yesterday. I had to work till 8 o'clock last night. And they say, pretty rough, but I worked until 10. Or you say, wow, last Tuesday night, I had 3 meetings at church. I had to stay extra late. 3 is hard, but I did 5. Or you walk in that day on crutches, and they say, what happened to you? And you barely get out of your mouth, well, I fell and sprained my ankle, before they launch in with this diatribe. Well, there was this one time when I was in Vail skiing this black diamond course, but I decided that wasn't hard enough, so I decided to base jump off the side of the mountain, where I proceeded to break my leg in 4 places and had to have a steel rod inserted, followed by months and months of rehab, and on they go. Y'all know people like that, or is it just me? Okay. Well, for whatever reason, whether it's out of uncertainty or low self-esteem or maybe just deficient social behavior, these folks seem to think like there's a derived benefit from bragging on one's self, who we are, what we've done. And at first reading this morning, Paul's words might seem to make us think that he's trying to be a one-upper. He starts off this letter to the Philippians by saying, of all men, I am one to boast. And he goes on and he lists all these things he's done, all of his great accomplishments. He says, of all men, I am most righteous. I have been most faithful. I've been obedient in abiding by the law of the synagogue, the law of Moses. He says, I've been a zealot, unwavering and unfaltering in that which I believe and that which I do. Look at all these things I've done. And he doesn't say it in the way that those one-uppers say it, to brag about what he's done. He says it in a painfully and blatantly honest way. This is who I am. These are all the things that I've done. And yet, even how great they sound, they all mean nothing. Because all of those things were who I was before I knew the risen Christ. Before I had a personal relationship with Jesus Christ and knew the power of his crucifixion and resurrection. As a result of that, all that stuff, it's meaningless. He says it's rubbish. I love that the NIV translates it rubbish. That word actually in Greek is skubalos and literally translates into animal excrement. Here is Paul using this raw, descriptive term. All of that stuff that I held in high regard and that I put value on is the equivalent to animal excrement. That's how trashy and dirty and junky all of that is. And I'm supposed to place my priority instead in my relationship with the Lord and in the power of his resurrection. Isaac Watts uses those same words of Paul, and you'll recognize them. He writes, when I survey the wondrous cross on which the Prince of Glory died, all those things that charm me most, I've sacrificed them to his blood. The only thing that matters is the cross of Jesus Christ. I love the story of Wayne Rice. He uses this illustration and he talks about this beggar who lived in a kingdom not far away from the palace. And one day he's walking outside and he sees this proclamation there on the gate of the palace. And it says that there's to be a royal banquet. And the only prerequisite for this banquet is that you're to wear your royal robes. And the beggar thinks to himself, I'd love nothing more than to attend this banquet, except I don't own any robes that are of royalty. The only thing I own are these filthy rags that I've been wearing for years. And so he tries to put out of his mind his visions of attending this banquet. But he can't get those thoughts out of his head. So he thinks for a few days about how he can go about acquiring these robes. And he forms this plan in his mind, he kind of laughs at his own audacity that it might actually work. And so he gets up enough nerve, and the next day he walks to the palace and he knocks on the gate, and the guard answers, opens it up, and he says, "How may I help you?" And this beggar says, "I'd like to talk to the king." The guard says, "Very well," and he goes and fetches the king, and the king comes, and he says, "What may I do for you, my son?" The beggar explains his dilemma, that he would want nothing more than to attend this banquet, but he doesn't have the necessary royal robes. And the king says, "Not a problem. I've got you covered." And so he calls for his youngest son, the prince. He says, "I'd like for you to outfit this man with some of your garments."